Well, thank you, everyone. I am honored and privileged to stand before you to give the State of the League report and what we've been able to achieve together, accomplish together. And I've taken a slightly different approach. One, because it's hard to follow up with, follow behind Street Fighter. But you will see a picture here that is most definitely not Street Fighter. But this is a photo from the Museum of Illusion. So stay tuned. I'll come back to why there's a picture of the Museum of Illusion. But I want to start as part of the State of the League conversation about asking the question of what is real, what is reality, and what is an illusion. So I'm going to give a couple of quick examples here. You guys all know me, I'm a sports guy. So is it a reality or an illusion that the Jazz are done tanking? Exactly. Yes, very much an illusion, right? So they've told us that that's an illusion. Okay, my next question is, according to the national polls, BYU is slightly better than Utah in football this year. Is that a reality or is that an illusion? Now, I am going to hold off on making any sort of judgments about that game for another couple of weeks to determine whether that's a reality or an illusion. But I do want to talk about what is a reality and what is an illusion as we think through what we do as cities. We as a league are organized in 3 general divisions: advocacy, engagement, operations. Justin manages our advocacy team, Molly manages our membership engagement team, and Nick Jarvis manages the internal operations. So I'm going to ask this question about what's an illusion and what's a reality in each of those divisions as I give you the State of the League report. So first, do we need the legislature to authorize city action? Is that a reality or is that an illusion? Well, the answer here is quite professorial, and I've been told not to get professorial. I'm going to keep this high level, but happy to chat afterward in more detail. We have a very unique legal system in Utah. Most states around the country are what is known as Dillon's Rule states. In other words, local governments in Dillon Rule states need to have express authorization from their legislature in order to act. So if the legislature hasn't told you you can, then the default is you can't. So the majority of states are in the Dillon's Rule space. Then you have some states that are known as home rule states. And in the home rule states, often those local governments will have charters that govern them. They're self-governing, but they have more authority and autonomy than in Dillon's Rule states. But state preemption applies to both. And many of the biggest battles we see around the country on state preemption actually happen in home rule states. Utah is unique because we actually have our own legal framework here. We're the only state in the country that has it. This is known as the Hutchinson Doctrine. Okay? This is where I was told not to get too professorial, but bear with me here. In 1980, the Utah Supreme Court issued a decision known as the Hutchinson Decision. And in that Hutchinson Decision, the court said, local governments, you are political subdivisions, and you cannot act in a way that is in conflict with state law or where you've been preempted. However, and this is the key point, local governments have broad discretion to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of your communities. That's one of our talking points and marching orders for you at the Capitol, is to preserve your authority to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of your communities. And the court said, we broadly construe this. We trust local government. So when we talk about partnership over preemption, that's not just a slogan. That's actually a way of life. That is the core principle that underpins everything that you do as mayors and council members. So the answer is an illusion or a reality? It's actually a little bit of both, because if the state has stepped in and done something, then we have to follow that. But if the state has not, we don't need permission like you would in Dillon's Rule state. So that's one of the questions we get all the time. Another question we get all the time in this illusion or reality space is, do only anecdotes drive policy at the Capitol? I'm going to answer this with a little column A, a little column B. Okay? Anecdotes often start discussions at the Capitol. Bill files get opened. But the value of the league, the value of all of you within the League of Cities and Towns, is the ability to complete the narrative and tell the rest of the story. So let me give you one perfect example here. A couple of years ago, there was legislation that started with an anecdote that cities were not meeting the statutory requirements to do residential inspections within 3 days. And that anecdote led to a bill that, if that bill had passed, would have allowed builders to pick their own inspectors. Now, some of you may be thinking to yourself, that sounds like a terrible idea. Who would ever do that? And the answer is the state of Tennessee. The Tennessee legislature just enacted that earlier this year, okay? Well, our data team got to work, and we followed up with city leaders all over the state, and within a matter of days, we had gathered data about 421,000 residential inspections. And of those, the number of inspections that had been completed by cities within 24 business hours was 93%. And the percentage that were completed within 3 business days was 99.7%. As a result of that data, which you provided to us, as a result of you responding to our action alert to oppose that bill, legislators within a matter of hours went from being interested in that bill to completely changing that bill and walking away from that provision. That is the collective strength of the league. When we say the strength of the league is the membership, it's because of your ability to have those relationships with legislators and provide us with that information to complete the narrative. So that, in the advocacy space, is a couple of the illusions and realities and the questions that we often receive. Well, what about in the membership engagement space? We get the question all the time, do you only engage with the members twice a year at mid-year and annual? Well, that is also an illusion because we try really hard to mingle with you as many places as possible. So this is just an incomplete list from our master engagement calendar. We keep an engagement calendar of staff of all of the AOG meetings, the COG meetings, the different professional organizations. So we are constantly on the road trying to get out and meet with our members. I wish there were more hours in the day, but our league presidents love to go to these meetings with us. So if you are having an event or you think it would be important for us to be there to listen and to engage with you, let us know so we can add it to our engagement calendar because there are many, many more here. And this is also a great example of our Faces and Places effort. Justin talked about building those relationships of trust. And last spring, we told you we were going to unveil a toolkit, which is on our website, Faces and Places, to help give you the skill set you need to engage with your legislators and tell your stories. Our website also is filled with new webinars. As part of Molly's responsibilities, we have built out a regular webinar program, which you can find on the website. Here's just a handful of our recent webinars. We've been doing these 1 to 2 times a month and trying to provide more and more resources to help you as you govern your cities. I'm also incredibly proud of our local administrative advisor program. McKenna Marchant on our team is our local administrative coordinator, and this is the first of its kind program in the country. We're a couple years into it now. We have state leagues around the country who are asking us, how did you do this? Because we want to build this out. And this program was designed because we were getting questions from particularly our smallest members. How can we get help to govern our cities and to administer our cities? We created this program in partnership with the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, with the Association of Governments around the state, and we now have local administrative advisors that are based in those AOGs all over the state that just in the last year alone helped 123 small cities and towns. And we have tracked 1,279 projects that those local administrative advisors have done over the past year. Part of the effort in local administrative advisors, we build out a municipal calendar. It's on our website where we are helping you track the different compliance dates, and that's something that will help a small town all the way up to a big city. So another question that we get asked, and is it illusion or reality, is the league a public entity? And the answer is yes. Yes, we are. Board of Directors is a public body. We follow the Open Public Meetings Act, follow GRAMA. So all the bills that drive you crazy about data privacy, we have to implement those too and are working to implement those as well. But I'm also proud of what our operations team has done behind the scenes. They've updated our employee handbook and HR procedures. They've developed the internal capacity to administer programs like the local administrative advisor, as well as some other technical assistance programs. And then I've been league director now for 8 years, which flew by just like that, right? As I look around the room at a number of you who got elected when I became director. But in those 8 years, we've increased our sponsorship revenue by 67%, which then helps us put on events like this one. And we've been fiscally responsible with our administrative costs, and we're actually projected to decrease those costs in this upcoming fiscal year. As you have to tighten your belts, we too are tightening ours. About 2/3 of our revenue comes from your membership dues, and I'm proud that 99% of cities and towns are members of the league, and I am proud of the work that we do collectively to serve you. Now, some of you have asked, is it illusion or reality? It's hard to get a hold of us. I can tell you I live on my phone, for better or for worse. So those of you who don't have my number yet, there it is. Feel free to reach out to me anytime via cell phone or email, because we want to know what's going on in your community so we can be a better advocate for you. We can provide the resources that you need. Even just from this conference, I've learned a lot listening to you, like, okay, there's a need here, there's a need there. What can we do to support our communities? And I want to give a shout out to our team. Hopefully they're all in the room right now, but we have a phenomenal staff that punches above their weight. And they are dedicated professionals who love what they do in serving you. So for the league staff that's in the room, Jared and Cassidy and Carson and Justin, Alexa, Katie, Molly, Nick, Angela, McKenna, Meg, Roger, and Todd, can you please stand? Thank you to the phenomenal staff that we have that works for you tirelessly, not just during the legislative session, but throughout the year. Okay, Molly mentioned that the National League of Cities is coming, and that's a historic opportunity for all of us. And she mentioned we're going to have a state night. So why all the illusions reality? It's because we're hosting our state night at the newly opened Museum of Illusions in downtown Salt Lake on Friday, November 21st, 2025. Opened in Salt Lake just a few weeks ago. We're going to be one of the first events that they've had there, and it's a family event. We will have more information for you after the annual convention, and we hope that you can join us. We've negotiated lower rates for the NLC conference all week, as well as for the one day on the Friday. And on that Friday, we've arranged to have Tim Shriver, who spoke at the League conference a couple of years ago about the Dignity Index. We've arranged for him to come speak to the National League of Cities about the Dignity Index. Well, that leads me to my last illusion or reality. And that is this question that all of you get from residents all the time. And this is a question that I'm going to set Washington, D.C. aside for a second and say, can government still work? Is that an illusion or a reality that government can still work? And my answer to that is you. My answer to that is the phenomenal things that you are doing in your communities. And it's a great privilege for me to be able to go around the state and learn about these great things. Like, it's awesome that Marysville got money to build a new fire station, and Sandy and Tooele did as well. It's awesome that Harrisville City just opened a new public works building that they hope is going to last them for the next 50 years. Mayor Daines was recognized yesterday as the Taylor Service Award winner. I will always think of her going down Center Street in Logan and seeing the new ice rink that is the centerpiece of downtown Logan. You may not know that Aurora Town actually has now resurfaced all of their streets, like many of you have. You may not know that St. George and Lehigh have been operating out of city halls that were designed for a fraction of their population, and both of them are opening new city halls later this year. You may not know that police and fire in the state of Utah responded to almost 900,000 911 calls last year and 2 million non-emergency calls. You may not know that Sandy City sent firefighters to help with the California wildfires, and that cities and towns across the state sent officers to cover shifts in Tremont after they lost their officers. I will always treasure the opportunities I have to interact with local leaders, whether it's Mayor Peterman and Helper as she proudly shows off downtown Humber and Main Street, or Mayor Hammond and Quinbenion and Vernal as they talk about the redevelopment of that great city, or the historic old theaters, Casino Theater in Gunnison, the Ritz in Tooele, or my personal favorite, where's Mayor Hills? The new, yes, that's right, the Murray Theater, my childhood theater where I drank my little Shastas for summer movies, just reopened a few days ago. That's one of the pictures here. My daughters love the splash pads in the pools that U.S. cities provide. Just this summer alone, we were at Linden and Murray and Bountiful and Sandy. We've talked before about Mill Creek Common that paired the city hall with a splash pad and restaurants and apartments and housing, and soon to be the first outdoor mini golf in the northern half of Salt Lake County. Just want to make sure I had my talking point right there, Mayor. And at their ribbon cutting, they actually had legislators with them, which again, great shout out to Faces and Places, brought their legislators to play mini golf as part of the ribbon cutting, which was awesome. You provide memorial parks to honor veterans. Layton City has a phenomenal tribute to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial at scale. Hurricane City just has your Vietnam Memorial Park that the community rallied around to fund. North Logan expanded their library and community center. Spanish Fork has an amazing all-abilities park. West Jordan has an all-wheels park. I knew that was going to happen. West Jordan has an all-wheels park, which is awesome and a regional draw. You may not realize that when you think about our community festivals that cities do, that we celebrate the Pony Express not once but twice, because both Clarkston and Eagle Mountain have Pony Express days, and we celebrate our Swiss heritage not just once but twice, because Midway and Santa Clara both have Swiss days. And basically any fruit has its own day, right? Which is awesome, You're there for the ribbon cuttings for new businesses. You're approving housing units. It's been referenced several times about station area plans. There are over 64,000 housing units contemplated within those station area plans. Just this week, I learned about a really cool project in Washington City that I didn't know about. Right? This conference has been valuable for me too, but a partnership with SITLA in order to accommodate affordable owner-occupied land or housing units in Washington City. And then Mill Creek and South Salt Lake have incredible promise programs where they're investing in high school students to make sure they all have career paths. And you can't talk about South Salt Lake without talking about their awesome city hall, which if you don't know what it is, look for it next time on I-80. You'll see it, I promise. It's awesome and how they've beautified that building. And that the list goes on and on and on of the remarkable things that you are doing. But local government is more than just projects. Local government is about people. And it's about neighbors serving neighbors to build a community. When you ran for office, you didn't realize how heavy of a time you would be facing. When you ran for office, you didn't expect, as Mayor Young and Orem City leaders had to do, to respond to international attention after a political assassination. When you ran for office, you didn't expect, like Mayor Holmgren had to do in Tremont, and that you'd be burying police officers. When you ran for office, you didn't expect to have a shooting at community festival like Mayor Karen Lang in West Valley City had to deal with. You didn't expect, when you ran for office, to deal with catastrophic wildfires across the state. I started making a list of all the cities that had to deal with it this summer, and it was just too long to count. And yet, in all of those examples, you as local leaders have set an example of courage, of conviction, and of compassion for how you've led your communities. I'm going to share a story from someone who's retiring from office. I can't use his name. But he told me recently how difficult it's been for him to have misinformed criticism from people with whom he had previously prayed. And my hunch is if I asked you how many of you have had to deal with that during your time in elected office, that most hands would go up. And yet, despite the political violence, despite the political vitriol, despite the difficult days in which we find ourselves, you are all still willing to serve. And I applaud you for that, and we applaud you for that. And so now I am going to ask for a show of hands. How many of you during your time of office have invested in new water tanks or new sewer systems, have hired police officers, built fire stations, invested in parks and recreation? Put them up high, invested in parks and recreation, done community festivals, celebrated the 4th of July. I mean, look around. Basically, every hand is up. Every hand is up. And that's because you are leaving your communities better than the way you found them. And the good things that you do as cities may not always make the news, but it always makes a difference. Now, there's a perfect personal example of everything I just described, and that is Mayor Troy Walker. So I'm going to say goodbye to my daughters and their cousin who are in that bountiful picture, and we're going to pivot over to Mayor Troy Walker. And it's been an honor and a privilege to have Mayor Troy Walker as your president. So you know that means a lot of early mornings, a lot of late nights, a lot of early morning calls and late night calls, a lot of meetings at the Capitol, meetings in Washington, D.C. But he's been a phenomenal representative for you at the Capitol. But more importantly than that, he's a devoted father, great husband to Stephanie, and I applaud Stephanie. I'm glad she was able to join us yesterday. He's a pilot. He's an avid mountain bike rider. In fact, I've had probably as many calls with you while you've been on a mountain bike as anywhere else. So instead of calling you Troy Walker, I think I'm going to change the TR to Trails Walker, because I think that's more appropriate for you. But he's very proud of his community. Every conversation I have with him, he's bragging about something great that's happening in his community or in his family. And most of our conversations start with, and I quote, "You can't make this stuff up." That's the family-friendly part of the quote. But it has been an honor to work with Mayor Walker as league president, and so please join me in thanking him one more time as the league president. In short, because of all of you, because of people like Mayor Walker, and because of your collective efforts in your community, I'm proud to report that even in these difficult times, because you are leading your communities and you're lifting your communities and you're listening to your communities, I'm proud to report that we're not just doing well, right? We can still continue to be peacemakers who unite our communities. We can still strive every day to do better, but I'm proud to report at this moment that because of you, the state of the league is strong. So thank you very much.